Her husband was a raging alcoholic, and this was far from the first time he'd beaten her. So no matter how many sweet lies he mumbled through the door, she refused to open it. Not long after, the husband, who'd passed out drunk on the couch, was jolted awake by a shrill, whirring mechanical noise. Confused, he followed the sound into the kitchen, only to find the meat grinder on the stovetop running on its own for no apparent reason. His wife was asleep in the bedroom, and there was no one else in the house. Who on earth could have turned it on? He just reached out to hit the off switch when the fridge door behind him creaked open on its own, completely out of the blue. The man stared in stunned disbelief. Was his wife messing with him on purpose? Before he could wrap his head around what was happening, a deafening static blast erupted from the living room. He sprinted back to find a shadowy figure in black sitting on the couch, flipping rapidly through the TV channels. But the second a movie flickered onto the screen, the figure that had just been sitting there vanished into thin air in the blink of an eye. Had he just imagined it? But the cushion was still springing back from a deep indentation. Someone had definitely been sitting there. As he stood there frozen in confusion, the shadowy figure materialized silently behind him like a ghost. The very moment the figure lunged to attack, Madison jolted awake in the bedroom from a terrible nightmare. She saw blood on her pillow and frantically felt the back of her head. Her wound was still bleeding, just as she'd feared. She rushed downstairs to beg her husband to take her to the hospital, only to find him dead in the living room, his neck grotesquely snapped. Seconds later, she spotted the wild-haired, shadowy figure standing right beside his body. Madison was paralyzed with terror. She spun around and sprinted back upstairs, but just as she tried to slam the bedroom door shut, the figure burst through behind her, sending her flying several meters across the room. She blacked out instantly. Not long after, police arrived on the scene in response to a neighbor's emergency call, and even they were horrified by the brutality of the man's death. What confused them even more was that there were no signs of forced entry anywhere in the house. How on earth had the killer gotten inside? The next day, Detective Shaw, the lead investigator on the case, went to the hospital to speak with Madison about what had happened. But Madison had lost her unborn baby in the attack, and she refused to answer any questions. Meanwhile, officers who'd spoken to Madison's neighbors uncovered two critical pieces of information. First, Madison's husband had a well-documented history of domestic abuse. Second, Madison had suffered 3 miscarriages in the past 2 years. Combined with the lack of forced entry at the crime scene, this led Detective Hannah to conclude that Madison was the prime suspect. 2 weeks later, Madison was released from the hospital and returned home. That night, she glanced out the window to see the streetlight below flickering erratically for no reason. Seconds later, she saw the shadowy figure walking toward the house, and her already frayed nerves snapped back into a state of sheer panic. Madison raced downstairs and locked every door and window in the house. She made it through the night shaken but unharmed, and first thing the next morning, she boarded up every window and door with wooden planks. Even her own sister, who'd come to check on her, had to climb in through a second-floor window. It was clear just how deep the trauma of the attack had cut. One day, as Madison was getting ready to do laundry, a searing pain shot through the wound on her head. She frantically felt the back of her skull. More than a month had passed, and the wound still hadn't healed. What was even more unsettling was that, moments after she tossed her dirty clothes into the front-loading washing machine, she saw the face of a strange woman materialize on the glass door out of nowhere.
What are you doing in my house? This is my house! Who are you?
Just then, the shadowy figure stepped into view, grabbed the woman by the hair, and slammed her violently to the ground. In an instant, the room warped and shifted around her, and Madison